Painted the footshells last week. I've been hanging up to dry. I haven't done the finishing work or paint work on the side panels that are held here by magnets, which there's one right here and one right here. I didn't care about getting the paint or the finish really smooth in this area because it's all covered up by the plate that goes on top of it. I've got a mistake here. I was holding these up with wire, part of a clothes hanger, and as I was painting it and moving it around, I ended up kind of holding it at an angle where the clothes hanger fell against the wet paint right there. And like most things I paint, I got some runs. Let's see, it wasn't, I'm not sure which one has runs where. There we go. You can see right there where there's some bubbling up. Got too much paint in that corner. There's a couple corners on this one that I got a bit too much paint. Again, my nemesis, the things that are really hard to get, are things like this, where it's this recessed area, trying to spray into that area and not get too much on the surrounding areas. I erred on the side of caution with these, and so these areas have paint, but it's not as much paint as it should be. You can see a bit of the primer coming through. This one, other than that, looks pretty good as far as paint coverage. And like I said, I messed up here, and there's a couple spots on the edges where I had too much paint and it ran a little. Pretty nice looking finish. Of course, there's a couple pieces of like dust in there, but as far as layer lines go, pretty happy with how that turned out. This one right here where my thumb is, that upper corner, looks like the paint is a little thin. Kind of see the texture's a little bit different. I can just barely see a little gray coming through there from the primer. Along the seam line, or not seam line, but along the line where that rectangular part is in there in the corner. It's a little bit light, and I can see a little bit of primer. It almost looks like a shadow, the way I've got the piece held in my hand here on the right hand side, but that's, I don't think that's, well, moving it over more, it kind of goes away, so maybe that is more shadow than a paint issue. But this one here just seems a little bit light. Not terrible in being feet. Being feet, they're actually probably just fine the way they are. Right foot, left foot there. So I'm not sure if I'm going to do what I did with the battery boxes that had basically the same issue, a couple small runs and some areas that didn't quite get enough paint, where I sanded the whole thing down with 400 grit paper and did another couple coats of white just to make sure that everything was uniformly covered, or if I'll just leave them the way they are. This mess up here is bothering me, but The rest of it is not bad. The battery boxes go here and cover that opening, and then the drive units come up here. The drive units I need to take apart and paint. So that was about it for this video. Is just showing the foot shells, which I'm happy with my sanding, my prep work, the layer lines, but I'm not quite happy with my painting, which is just the way it goes, and it's not by any means terrible. One thing I would like to say, to point out, is that I sanded the inner part of these feet a little bit too much, where if I get the light going there, that should be a sharp edge. There's an angle here, and then this is another angle, so where they meet it should be sharp, because you're kind of trying to emulate, you know, the real R2D2 units that were made out of aluminum, and so that would be two edges of metal, which should have a sharp line, and it's kind of rounded over. Just because I sanded, trying to get the layer lines and everything, I sanded that a bit too much to where it's not a sharp transition. If I look at this one, here you can see this is the outer facing one that you actually see, so the other one is one that you don't actually see that much because it's facing inside the droid. But this one here that faces outside, you can see it's got a much sharper, hopefully you can see, it's got a much sharper crease. I don't know, what do you call it? Want to call it a crease or imitation join where pieces of aluminum at a different angle would be together. So I'm happy that the outside, the parts that show, have fairly sharp lines, and it's just kind of the inside of the foot there that got a bit rounded from sanding too much. So not bad, and again, that's two more of the larger pieces that I've got white paint on. Maybe not perfect, but white paint enough to the point where if I put these on the droid, you wouldn't even notice the drips or the areas that are a little bit light in paint unless you were like really close. In fact, even this far away where the camera is, the light would have to be just right to see some of those drips. So really, I guess, happy that I've got paint on these, and just still bummed that I'm making dumb mistakes like letting something touch the wet paint there and not getting it quite perfect, but totally passable. So 2 more pieces painted. This is leaving me with not that much more that's been prepped. I've got all 3 ankles that need filler material before they're painted. Another round of filler and primer, and then final sanding and painting. And I've got the booster covers for the legs that are, there's a lot of detail in them and different angles, so painting those without messing up is really going to be a challenge for me. And I've got 1 coat of filler and 1 coat of primer on them, but I haven't done any more detail sanding on those. And that's all that I've actually got in the pipeline apart from the body that I'm working on to be painted right now. The weather is starting to take a turn. It's the middle of September, and this week is not going to be good weather. So I'm thinking this week I might glue together my reprinted dome. Also the shoulder hubs, I did not glue those together. I might glue those together and maybe start sanding those as well. Trying to get the trying to get the most time spent on things that will get R2 on his feet so that I can hopefully get him sooner rather than later to be standing up in the position he's most likely going to be living in our house, and have his legs and feet and body all together and painted and freestanding. So while I work on the detail pieces and the dome, I've at least got the body all together, which are, apart from the dome, the largest parts, so they're not all over the work area and in the garage drying or whatever. So I've got some more space to work on other projects, which, yes, I still am working on other things at the same time, trying to not 100% dedicate all my time to R2D2 because I'm starting to get worn out with the finishing work. So need to take a break every now and then and do something else. So yeah, got the feet painted and I'm okay with it. Not the best job, but I might repaint them and try and get them a bit better than they are. And I still haven't made up my mind about clear coat, yes or no, and what type of clear coat. So that's it.